الله. مسألة 196. ويكره للمغتسل أن يتنشف في ثوب غير ثوبه الذي يلبس، فإن فعل فلا حرج، ولا يكره ذلك في الوضوء. It is makruh for someone to dry himself in clothes other than the clothes that he is wearing.
Because the Prophet rejected it.
Because the Prophet rejected that. You understand?
This is action of the Prophet, yeah.
Yeah. So it is makruh for the one who does ghusl to dry himself in, and he tell people many times like the Prophet didn't do this, is it? But he actually take it as it's not an obligation only. It's not a question of. It's not.
You've learned these words, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just don't like. It's always in my face.
Okay, I don't know. I didn't. Someone. Okay. You should have taken them before. ويكره للمغتسل أن يتنشف في ثوب. It is makruh for someone who does ghusl to dry up himself in anything other than the clothes that he will wear afterwards. If he does it, there is no problem. It's only makruh. ولا يكره ذلك في الوضوء, but it's not makruh for wudu. It's only for ghusl. That is when you take the actions, and then you say, but this is for the Salafis to take. I mean actions, and you don't, and like the actions as if it was no qiyas on actions. That will be very, very stupid.
Wow.
Understand? Because it is okay to do to dry up yourself. Like if someone say, okay, the Prophet used to refuse drying up himself, but one day I gave him one towel, green towel.
Shows that it's
so one day he gave him green towel, he dried up himself. Okay, it's makruh to do it except with green towel.
That's funny.
Ibn Hazm, what did he do again with action? With the action and the saying, what did he do again?
For him, the actions and the
action is more important.
Yeah, more. But if he can prove that, where it's proven that the action was after, then it's the same.
The same.
Yeah. If he can prove that, if you prove to him that the action was after the saying, then he will say, we take it. So you say, and then his proof here is the hadith of Maymuna, that وضعت لرسول الله غسلا وسترته. I put to the Prophet water to take a bath, and then I covered him. And then she said, she mentioned now this is part where in the hadith that he doesn't want to bring all the hadith. He said, and then she mentioned the way he did ghusl. He washed his head, then he poured water on the rest of his body, and then he went aside, he washed his feet, and then she gave him a piece of fabric. So he put this with his hand like this. He moved his hand like, I don't want it. And he didn't want it. Also, he narrates another hadith, he mentioned another hadith, which is from Awza'i, from Yahya ibn Abi Kathir, from Muhammad ibn Abd al-Rahman ibn As'ad ibn Zurara, from Qais ibn Sa'ad. He said the Prophet visited us, and then he mentioned hadith, and then the Prophet Sa'ad ordered someone to bring him water, so he does to do ghusl. He say he did the ghusl, and then he gave him milhafa. He gave him like a piece of fabric, which is colored with saffron, or worse. Saffron, you know what saffron is? Saffron.
Saffron, okay.
Yeah. And worse is something, another yellow flower. The Arabs, people before, when they have no other ways to dye the clothes. They would paint it with the bars. فاشتمل بها رسول الله. Then the Prophet put it around his body. Of course, the clothes that are done with saffron and wars are. There is hadith later which forbid some kind of this kind of clothes. Abu Muhammad said, هذا لا يضاد الأول. He said the first doesn't contradict the second. I mean, first, this, he put it around him. The first one, he rejected it. He said, this doesn't contradict this. Because he put it around him, so it became his clothes. He worn it, so he didn't dry himself up with it.
The other one is for drying. The first one was for drying.
Yes, so he refused it second. That has nothing to do with just something that happened, coincidence. He said, and amongst this, some people have said something like this from the Salaf. Ata said, was asked about towel, which is made proper like fabric, like designed or something. If a man can use it to wipe himself, he refused. He said no. He said this is some bid'ah. No.
Who should it be?
Ata.
Okay.
He said it's bid'ah. He said this is something new. People didn't used to do it. People didn't used to draw themselves. He's clearly the man who asked question. He said about towel, which is like has this fabric, design, flowers, whatever. So it's like these people they have nothing to do except to the point where they are designing their clothes. It's something like people didn't used to really in the Sahaba. I mean, when they don't care much. You understand? That has nothing to do with it. قل من حرم زينة الله التي أخرج لعباده. Clear in the Quran say who has forbidden the zina that Allah has shown to his servants. So قلت أرأيت إن كنت أريد أن يذهب عني المنديل برد الماء. He said, what if, the man asked him, what if I am not like doing it for show or something, it just I am doing it to wipe the water which is cold. He said then it's fine.
Is that what Atta said? Yeah.
Sorry?
Atta said that.
Atta said yes. That is, if you are just doing it to wipe the cold, like then it's fine. Then Ibn Hazm say, but the Prophet never forbid that from doing it in wudu. So it is mubah. He should say it never happened that someone told him to do it and he didn't do it. So that's why it's mubah. The difference, because the first one he also didn't forbid it, he just didn't do it. مسألة وكل 197 وكل غسل ذكرنا فللمرء أن يبدأ به من رجليه أو من أي أعضائه شاء. He said every ghusl we mentioned, a person can start from his feet or from any side of his body, except for the ghusl of Jum'ah and Janaba.
Stopping the head.
فلا يجزئ فيهما إلا البداء بغسل الرأس أولا. He said that he must wash his head first, then the body. فإن انغمس في ماء فعليه أن ينوي بداء برأسه. He said if he dips himself in water, he must do the intention to start with his head first and then his body.
Okay, he doesn't take it to be general for any ghusl.
برهان ذلك, he said the dalil about this, what we mentioned before with the isnad from Abi Huraira, that it is the right of Allah on every Muslim أن يغتسل في كل 7 أيام يوما, that he washes himself once every 7 days. يغسل رأسه وجسده, he washes his head and his body. No, his head and his body. Wa doesn't mean thumma. In Quran, it means. In Quran.
What means thumma?
in Quran, wa means if it's not
in that order.
if it's something that you have to do, then you have to do it in the order, because ibda'u bima bada Allahu bih. Start with what?
Okay.
That is Quran. That is bada Allahu bih. This is hukmullah. It's the saying of the Prophet. وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ.
But when we say because the saying,
yeah, it is the hukmullah. Definitely, he doesn't talk from himself. You understand? But actually, if you look at the hadith, mostly many hadith, you can't. The Sahabi will say, the Prophet said this and this and this, and you will never find. It's very difficult to work out which one comes first. You understand, of the hadith, because the hadith always, okay, the wording you can find out the wording, and it is necessary. You understand?
So that's why you're saying in the Quran,
but the Prophet will say a long speech, and then one Sahabi will say part of the speech, another Sahabi will say part of the speech, another Sahabi will say part of that speech. Now, which part was before the other one? You understand? It's definitely the things that you need to know. You will find them, but the wording, the right wording, you will find them. But it's not necessary that.
It's not necessary that the order was preserved.
Yeah.
Just like the Quran, we don't know which ayat came first.
Yeah. He said, قد صح عن رسول الله أنه قال ابدأوا بما بدأ الله به. The Prophet said, start with what Allah have started with. Yeah. He, of course, this hadith ابدأوا بما بدأ الله به. It's more نبدأ بما بدأ الله به. We start with what Allah have started with.
You said this time.
What?
We start.
I said it's shadh.
Okay.
I said this is shadh. ابدأوا, the order. أبدأوا is shadh. The majority say نبدأ. We start with. This is a statement which means obligation. Explain, like نبدأ. The first we start this day is the salah.
And when we say we, if the Prophet said we, it would mean he's included in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he said وسنذكره في ترتيب الوضوء بإسناده إن شاء الله. We will mention it when we talk about wudu. How to start wudu, to do wudu. He said, and the Prophet started with his head before his body. That is because he started with his head and before his body, because he was washing. It just does make sense when you are washing.
But you don't pick your foot up first.
Yeah. وقال تعالى وما ينطق عن الهوى إن هو إلا وحي يوحى. He said, Allah said in the Quran, he doesn't speak from himself. It's just وحي. فصح أن ما ابتدأ به رسول الله في نطقه فعن وحي أتاه من عند الله تعالى. He said, whatever the Prophet have said, whatever the Prophet started with when he's in his speech, that is from wahy. فالله تعالى هو الذي بدأ بالذي بدأ به رسول الله. He said, Allah is the one who started, who said it that way, what the Prophet have said.
We have to prove that the Prophet said it in that order.
Yes. So the hadith of حق لله على كل مسلم يغتسل بكل 7 أيام يوم يغسل رأسه وجسده, to wash his head and his body. This is one hadith. And for the janaba, of course, he didn't mention about the janaba here because he mentioned it before.
Yeah.
مسألة وصفة الوضوء. He said the way to do wudu. Now 198, the صفة of wudu. He said the صفة of doing wudu, the way to do wudu. If he wake up from sleep, he must wash his hand 3 times, the way we mentioned before. And he must do istinshaq with his nose, and istinthar, taking out the water from his nose 3 times to chase away the shaitan from his nose, the way we mentioned before. He said whether he did the wudu straight away after waking up or later, like someone woke up at midnight and then he did wudu only after 6 hours in the morning before Fajr. He says still, because he woke up from wudu, from sleep, so this is how he must do wudu. He said He said if he does that, he doesn't have to repeat the wudu. فإن كان قد فعل كل ذلك فعليه أن يعيد ذلك. فعليه أن He doesn't have to do that wudu again from any other hadath. Hadath is something that breaks the wudu, except for sleeping.
Oh, so if he wakes up, he washes his hand 3 times, nose 3 times.
Yeah.
And then does the wudu.
And then he does the wudu. So he doesn't have to repeat that wudu.
Unless he does a hadath.
No, even if there's hadath, except from sleep. This is a mistake.
Wow.
This is how people, when they write the books, when they copy the books, he must have said he doesn't have to repeat that process in any other wudu, except if he go to sleep again.
Yeah, that's this is
Okay.
You understand? Oh, no, it's not. This is what if you read it. If you read it here, فإن كان قد فعل كل ذلك فليس عليه أن يعيد ذلك الوضوء. If he has done that, he doesn't have to repeat that wudu from any hadath except sleep. If he doesn't have to repeat a similar wudu with doing. You understand? Either he didn't know how to put it, or the printers, the people who printed. So the books sometimes are very old, can't read them properly. So what he's saying here is, if you have to do wudu again later, you don't have to wash your hands 3 times, because you are not, you were already awake. Yeah, that's right.
When you first read this, did they say that? When you first looked at Muhalla a long time, did they say it?
I don't remember. I read Muhalla a long time, so I don't remember how he put it. Actually, there are some things that in Muhalla now I'm reading them. I don't remember even that I read them before.
Like yesterday. Well, then I say, just a question on ghusl.
Yeah.
If I do ghusl, because I used to have a habit that I would do ghusl, even if I wasn't in janaba, I would do ghusl with wudu. Is there any problem in that bid'ah or anything with the intention of ghusl? Like I was doing ghusl, even though I wasn't necessary, do you understand? I just like doing it. I like doing ghusl to feel clean. I have a habit of doing wudu and ghusl together.
You do have.
Because I get waswas if I decide to do
it. If you are going to do ghusl, it's important that sometime you need to do wudu probably in the same time.
Yeah, I do ghusl and wudu together.
Yeah. So you do your wudu, that is for your wudu.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the ghusl is extra. It's not.
Okay.
It's not wajib. But the wudu that you are doing it, you're doing it with intention. I mean, you want to ghusl. You understand? So.
There's nothing wrong with doing the actions of ghusl without being in need of doing ghusl.
No, you can do it as long as it's not. Why? It's not need. There is no problem with doing ghusl.
Yeah.
Without needing to do ghusl. To do ghusl in the way. I mean, wudu is always good to do it.
Yeah.
Even if you have wudu.
Yeah.
Even if you have wudu, you always need.
Because it's clear for me. Because it's saying I have no
doing wudu at any time is fine, even if you have wudu. Because wudu by itself is not only like the way they put it. Some people, some fuqaha put the wudu. They say wudu is wasa'il. It's not from maqasid. It's from the wasa'il. Maqasid is something that you do for itself. Like you pray for the sake of praying. You understand? You don't. But wudu, some people say this is a tool, not the means. Like you do wudu for the salah. No, but it's not true. You do wudu for wudu. You understand? Because wudu wipes sins. Whoever does wudu, the Prophet say when you do the wudu, understand? So wudu by itself is still. So he said the fact that the Prophet used to do wudu while he has wudu. You see, he has wudu, and wudu. The hadith says if man ahdatha, so that wudu is not necessary. He had already wudu, but then he will do wudu again. You understand? That is of course an action, but I explain why. Because of the hadith that says when you do wudu. said then, so he said if he does that, wash his hands 3 times and wash his nose 3 times, then he doesn't have to repeat the process again when he does wudu, except if he go to sleep and wake up, then he has to do it again. He said, but if he pours water on his hands from a vessel without putting his hands in, he still must have to wash his hands 3 times.
Okay.
Understand? Like if you are pouring water from the vessel rather than putting your hand in, because the hadith says you shouldn't put your hands in. He said,
so
he's
gonna wash his hands 3 times.
Yes, even if he doesn't want to put his hand inside the vessel. The hadith says he should wash his hands 3 times before he put his hands. Before, he doesn't say if he wants or he doesn't want or anything, but before he put his hands. So, but what if he is not going to put his hands inside? Ibn Hazm say he still must wash his hands 3 times.
What's the burhan?
Okay, we go to that. ثم نختار له أن يتمضمض 3 وليست المضمضة فرضا. He said then we choose, it's preferable that he washes his mouth 3 times. Then, he said then. So what he does here is washing his hands 3 times. And then washing his nose 3 times. And then washing his mouth 3 times. Because he said then. You understand? And he said washing his mouth 3 times is not an obligation. And if he doesn't do it, his wudu is complete and his prayer is complete, whether he leave it intentionally or by out of forgetfulness. He said then he does niyyah for his wudu for salah. After that he starts his niyyah for wudu for the salah, the way we mentioned before. He said then he put water in his nose and he should like take it with his breath. Yeah, necessary. It's important that he does that.
With his breath?
Yes.
Suck it
with his nose. Then he must take it out 1 time at least. If he does it 2nd time, is fine. 3rd time is better. He say, and these are obligations. The wudu and the salah. There is no wudu and there is no salah without them, with this. Whether he leave them intentionally or unintentionally. He said then he must wash his face from the side where the hair in the high place on the forehead to the side of the ears to the chin. It's better to do it 3 times or 2 times. 1 time is okay. He said he doesn't have to put water below the chin, and he doesn't have to put his fingers through his beard. Then he washes his hands from the cut of the fingernails of the nails up to the elbow.
Is that the tips of the fingers, or do you mean the?
Yeah, from here.
The tip, that's
I mean
tip.
here, all the sides.
All the hand.
Yes,
Yeah.
up to the elbow. He said 3 times is better, 2 times is fine, 1 time is enough. He doesn't have to do more 1 that time, but it's better to do it 3 times or at 2. He said, and he must put water. He must make sure that there is water everywhere on his hand, including below the ring. By if it's like tight, to move it, to make sure that the water reaches below. Then he wipe his head any way he wants, but we prefer that he does it full.
Why do you say anyway he wants? Because some madhabs they just say wipe.
Yeah, he said anyone. No, he said anyone. He can wipe his head any way he wants. Like he doesn't have to do it this way. Like if he does like this or like this, like just put his hand on his hair. That is masah.
So Abdul Hadi did that once. Abdul Hadi in Acton.
Yeah. What does he do? Yeah, people. I mean, everybody, even the Ahnaf, they say this is the Ahnaf madhab. They say that this is the minimum, the four fingers minimum. He said we prefer that he does all the head. He said anyway he wipe his head with his two hands or one hand or with one finger is still fine. If he wipe part of his head is still fine.
So if he says one finger, then even if you use a tool to wipe your head, it's fine.
But doesn't he take the action of the Prophet?
Yeah, he takes the action of the Prophet to be mustahab only, not as explanation of the Quran or Sunnah. The action, if it's exactly what the Quran and Sunnah says, that's fine. But if the action, the Prophet will be applying he will go also to the Arabic language. The Arabic language, he will say that masah is any way you do it. Yeah. So you say the Prophet did something that is the best. Always the action he say that is the best thing to do.
So he wouldn't have a problem if someone wiped your head for you. You wouldn't have a problem with that if someone, while you're doing wudu.
Doing wudu is something that
you have to do. You have to do with your own limbs.
Yeah, you don't have to.
If I take the person's hand and do it, like if I take his hand and I go like that, is that fine?
Why do you go?
No, I'm just thinking like if in this scenario.
Yeah, you can. Okay. There is nothing to.
But I have to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to do it. I was thinking if some people, unless it's necessity, then a person can do it.
Well, to do.
No, that's a good point though, because you're still doing it. You get someone's hand.
Yeah.
Like for a disabled person who cannot move properly, his mum or his wife or whoever is going to put his hand in there like that, put his hand in there, put his face in.
Yeah, actually, it is possible to do it. You understand? To do wudu. I mean, it is. There is nothing to say. It's not. You can't do it. So. It's question of when we say wudu is question about the person should do the intention. Understand? If someone else does it on his behalf, it's still fine. I mean, even if he doesn't, if the masah is someone else do it, it's still fine as long as he does the intention.
Because the Prophet was doing it, the man when he went to the Prophet's feet and he was going to do it, and the Prophet said I put them on in the state of
no, he was going to take his shoes from the feet.
So then he's going to wash it.
Okay, so he said if he وليس على المرأة والرجل مس من حدر من الشعر عن منابت الشعر على القفا والجبهة ثم يستحب له مسح أذنيه. He said he doesn't have, neither the woman neither the man, to touch whatever hair is on the side of the below the head,
the neck,
sometime on the head, on the neck, or anything, any hair that comes below the
hangs below the forehead,
like so below the forehead, yeah.
You don't touch it.
He said that they don't have to do it. Then he says to wipe his ears.
Okay.
If he wants, with the same water that he has used to wipe his head, or if he wants with a different water.
Oh, because he thinks the ears
is part of the head.
Okay.
Yeah. He said ويستحب تجديد الماء لكل وضوء. It's better to choose to change the water for every limb. then to wash his feet 3 times, from the cut of the nails of the feet, like where the
tip of the toes.
Yeah, tip of the toes, to the back, the calf,
The heel.
the heels. He say if he does it 3 times, it's better. If he does it twice, it's fine. If he does it 1, is enough. He doesn't have to do. He said, and we like that he mentions the name of Allah on the wudu. If he doesn't, his wudu is complete. Then he goes, he say, as for the madmada, moving the water in the mouth and spit it, he said there is no hadith sahih from the Prophet that he ordered the people to do it. There is hadith that he used to do it. He said وإنما هي فعل فعله عليه السلام وقد قدمنا أن أفعاله ليست فرضا وإنما فيها الإتار به عليه السلام لأن الله تعالى إنما أمرنا بطاعة أمر نبيه ولم نأمرنا بأن نفعل أفعاله. He said, as for madmada, moving the water in the mouth, there is no order, but it just came that the Prophet used to do it. Every hadith that says as an order is da'if. So it's only that an action that the Prophet used to do. And we have already explained that it's not, his actions are not obligation. There is only an order to take him as the best example, to like uswa hasana, itar. He said because Allah ordered us to obey the orders of His Prophet, and He didn't order us to do what he does. And then he mentioned the ayah, let those who oppose His order fear that calamity or severe punishment befalls them. And then he Surah An-Nur. He say, and Allah said, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. He said, as for istinshaq and istinthar, then Abu Huraira narrated from the Prophet, if someone does wudu, he should put water in his nose and then he should take it out. And he said, we narrated it also he narrated it here from Abi Zinad, from A'raj, and from Muhammad ibn Munabbih, from Abi Huraira, and from Salama ibn Qais, from the Prophet. Okay, so that is an order. But then he said, قال Ali said, Malik and Shafi'i said, istinshaq and istinthar are not obligation in the wudu, neither in the ghusl of janaba. Abu Hanifa said they are both obligation in the ghusl from janaba, but they are not obligation in the wudu. Ahmad ibn Hanbal and Dawud al-Zahiri said istinshaq, istinthar are both obligation in the wudu, but they are not obligation in the ghusl of janaba. But and the moving of the water in the mouth, madmada, is not fard, neither in the wudu, neither in ghusl in the janaba. I said this is the right thing. So he says the same thing as Ahmad and Dawud, that madmada is not an obligation, but istinshaq is an obligation. Istinthar and istinshaq. He said, وَمِمَّنْ صَحَّ عَنْهُ الْأَمْرُ بِذَلِكَ. He said, amongst those that has been we have proved that they have ordered the same thing is Ali ibn Abi Talib. He said, if you do wudu, then wash your nose and clean your nose. Shu'ba narrated from Hamad ibn Abi Sulaiman regarding someone who forgets to do madmada and istinshaq. You know now what madmada and istinshaq is. He said that he should repeat. Hamad bin Abi Sulaiman is the mufti of Kufa in his time, one of the small tabi'in. Hamad bin Abi Sulaiman, he is the sheikh of Abu Hanifa, considered to be, people have different opinions regarding him, Hasan al-Hadith, or they consider his hadith, he considered to be Saduq, Hasan al-Hadith. However, he doesn't have a lot of hadith.
Consider him to be Saduq?
Huh?
Who considers him to be Saduq?
Yeah, the majority they take like his hadith, but it's not like strong. Understand? Hammad ibn Abi Sulaiman, his name, and he is the sheikh of the. Some people say he is the only trustworthy sheikh of Abu Hanifa. If we take away what the claims that they make, that A'mashi was his sheikh and Shu'ba was his sheikh and Sha'bi was his sheikh, and if we take these, they are not his
baseless.
Yeah, then his sheikh, the only thiqa sheikh. And from Shu'ba, from Al-Hakam bin Utayba, fi man salla, regarding a person who prayed and he has forgotten to do madmada and istinshaq, he said, I prefer that he repeat the prayer, meaning repeat the wudu and then the prayer. And Waki' from Sufyan Thawri, from Mujahid, that istinshaq part half of the wudu. And Abd al-Razzaq from Sufyan, from Hammad ibn Abi Sulaiman and ibn Abi Layla, both of them said if he forgets the madmada and istinshaq in the wudu, he should repeat the salah. And Abd al-Razzaq from Ma'mar from Zuhri, whoever forgets madmada and istinshaq in wudu, he should repeat the prayer. Ibn Abi Shayba from Abi Khalid al-Ahmar, from Hisham from Al-Hasan, regarding madmada and istinshaq and istinthar and washing of the face and the hands and the feet, 2 are enough, 3 are better. It doesn't mean that it is considered to be obligation. And you see some of them there, they don't say only istinshaq, they say also madmada.
Yes.
It's an obligation, like Hammad ibn Abi Sulaiman and Al-Hakam ibn Utayba, they don't say ibn Abi Layla, they say Mujahid now, these 3 or 4 of them, he mentioned them, but they don't say exactly what Ibn Hazm says, because they say also madmada is an obligation. You have to do wudu if you forget it. Ibn Hazm say, وَشَغَبَ قَوْمٌ, some people said that istinshaq and istinthar is not mentioned in the Quran. And they said that the Prophet said the salah of any of you will not be completed until he does wudu the way Allah ordered him. There is a hadith which Ibn Hazm considered to be sahih, but it isn't, that it says that the Prophet said the prayer of any of you will not be complete until he does the wudu the way Allah ordered him. The hadith speaks about prayer, so he starts like the prayer will not be complete until you do wudu the way Allah ordered, and then you stand up, and he explained the salah.
Which book is that from?
It is in Abu Dawud and Musnad Ahmad. And so Abu Muhammad said, وَهَذَا لَا حُجَّةَ لَهُمْ فِيهِ لأن الله تعالى يقول, this is no proof here. He said because Allah said, whoever obeys Allah, the Prophet, he has obeyed Allah. So everything that the Prophet ordered, that Allah ordered. You understand? He said, أما قولنا في الوجه, as for our saying regarding the face, so he gave his answer regarding the istinshaq and istinthar.
So we would say that it's mustahab. No, we would say it's
mustahab.
So you think because we take from the Quran as being all the obligatory acts that you have to do in wudu, and what the Prophet done as being extra.
What the Prophet have done is extra, but the Prophet ordered to do istinshaq, no? Didn't he say if someone who does wudu, hadith of Abu Hurairah, then he must put water in his nose and wipe it? That is one thing. And the hadith of but you can remember that he said that you have to do twice. You do once before the wudu, and then when you wake up, and then you do it again in the wudu. You understand? Because you have to do it in the wudu. There is an order for it. But and if you wake up, you have to do istinthar 3 times. You understand? So he said that you have to do it twice, according to him. He said, فإنه لا خلاف في أن الذي قلنا فرض وغسل قبل خروج اللحية. He said there is no, okay, he said as regarding the face, the way he described the washing of the face, he said that is the place where you have to wash before a person has a beard. He said, and after a person has a beard, then the beard has covered the area, so you wipe on that side, because that is the face, on the beard. He said, and there is no proof. He said, and the ghusl should covering everything that is called face. And we shouldn't take the opinions that says there is a difference between what a person who has no beard and the person who has beard, that they have to like this person has to wash in this way and this person has to wash in this way. He said there is no proof regarding that. He said, as for the hair that hangs out from the beard, which is not on the level of the face, like the beard that is long, or the hair that goes back, he said then Allah didn't order us to wash the hair or to wipe the hair. He ordered us to wipe the head. So you wipe on the hair that is on the head, and you wash the hair that is on the face, not the one that hangs below. He said, okay, so I explained that, yeah. وأما قولنا في غسل الذراعين وما تحت الخاتم والمرفقين فالله تعالى قال أيديكم إلى المرافق. He said, as washing the ذراع,
elbow,
the hand, forearm up to the elbow. He said, because Allah said wash your hands up to the elbows. He said, whoever leaves a small, even a very small area in his body, in this place, without washing it completely, then he has not done ghusl the way he has been ordered to do. And what is below the ring is a place of his body, so he must cover it as well. He said, as for ila, Allah said, wash your marafiq, the elbows, to ila al-ka'bayn. Yeah, so ila, he said, ila in the Arabic language has two different meaning. Sometimes ila means the ghaya, the destination, like ila. If you say I went to something, so that place, it means you reached it, not necessarily
beyond it,
you entered it. He said, and also ila means ma'a, with, like in Quran. So he didn't, al-ghaya is known. The Arabs know that ila means the destination, like you reach the destination, doesn't mean that you
entered
beyond it. You understand? But also in the Arabic language means with. And this is clear in the Quran. وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا أَمْوَالَهُمْ إِلَىٰ أَمْوَالِكُمْ. Don't take their property, the property of the orphans, like don't put it together with, don't take it with your property. Make it your own.
Combine with
you understand? Make it your own. So he said وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا أَمْوَالَهُمْ إِلَىٰ أَمْوَالِكُمْ, Surah An-Nisa. Okay, so he says ma'a. He said here, so since this word means to and means with, then we have to take both the meanings. Yeah, he said that's mean if we take one, we don't have to wash the elbow, just up to the elbow, but we don't have to past the elbow, like here. He said, but if the ayah means also, it means
With.
to the elbow and it means with the elbow. So including the elbow. He said then we have to wash everything. We have to talk both meanings.
You see how he says you take all the meanings of words? You see how he says you take all the meanings of words?
But here he doesn't actually, he says the different here. He says this is right and this is right. Yeah?
He's separating between them. He's not saying that you have to.
He doesn't put them together. He does this a lot. I mean, when you take them together, you have to apply them together.
One is not sufficing.
But sometimes, most of the time, actually, he does this. He said no.
This is accepted. This is accepted.
He said this is. You take it this way. You take it this way. You understand?
It's up to you.
Yeah, but he says this is the word. It means here like this. So if you have done it, you have done the right thing, and it means this. So if you do it this way, but the thing is, when we say this is how you put it. This word means this, and this word means this. So you have to take the two meanings rather than one, or choose. That is the problem. Like someone will choose one, and the other will choose one, and he knows this about this rule, that nobody has the right to choose one word, and he contradicts himself. Because if you remember when we spoke about zakat, what he says. That the Prophet said there is no zakat. ليس فيما دون, there is no zakat in dun, and dun mean less or other than 5 awsuq of dates. He said this duna means other than and less than. He said those people who say there is no zakat in less than 5 awsuq, that is right. But they should say also there is no zakat in anything other than 5 awsuq.
So you need 5.
You understand? So with that duna, he takes 2 meanings there, and he apply them both. He does something these mistakes. This is rules that have been made before him. He understood them, and sometimes he misunderstands them or something. Understand? This is the rules that
he didn't challenge every aspect of
the whole fuqaha accept this, like you take all meanings of words.
No, as a rule, they take it as a rule. A word must be taken generally, but they say a word. This is why they say Quran is dhanni. You see, when we have a rule that the fuqaha have taken, except for the Zahiris. And amongst what we call the Salaf, it wasn't. It's like the philosophers introduced it later. That just to strengthen their position, like when they say
one meaning has more significance than another.
No, they say Quran. There is something called dhanni thubut. And there is something called dhanni dalala. Dhan
is indefinite.
No, dhan is suspicion. Is
indefinite. When you say
indefinite. You understand? Something that they say there is the fuqaha try to play around.
You suspect something.
Yeah, some people. Dhan. I suspect something. I'm not sure about something. When you are not sure about something, you say this is dhan.
Suspicion.
Yeah. But then they try to say that there is a difference. There is dhan is shak. And then they say, look, dhan in Arabic means other than the shak. Something that is not known in the proper Arabic. They introduced it. So they said dhan means something that you have you strongly believe it, but not 100%. You are not sure about it, but it's more likely.
This is what they say is dhan.
Yes. They define shak as to be 50-50.
This is what they use in istilah.
Yes. The usuliyin and fuqaha. They say shak is something where it's like 50-50. Dhan is something that is like 70% 230, like 70% is right, 30% is
64.
yeah. Try to use some hadith to say this.
But this is wrong.
The dhan is done, and there is, and then they say there is called something wahm. Wahm is like when you take the less part, the opposite of the dhan, 20%, 30% sure. You understand? Less than 50%. So they say this is wahm. Okay. Now they say
The truth is the whole shak, really, the whole one.
everything is done. When you are suspicious about something, there is suspicion. There is dhan rajih and dhan marjuh. In religion, it is accepted in some areas, like in prayer. In prayer, it's dhan, but dhan rajih, dhan marjuh. Dhan is more likely that I pray 3 rak'ah, but it's possible that I pray 2.
Okay.
That is more likely. The Quran, the religion in, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Ijtanibu kathiran min adh-dhan," a lot of dhan. So He didn't say keep away from all the dhan. Now we have to keep away from the dhan, because dhan in itself, the Prophet said, it's a lie. But then, okay, and Allah said it's a lot of dhan, you have to keep away from it. But some of dhan we use it. We say we use only where the Quran say use it. Like pray. If you are praying and you have suspicion, you are not sure if it's 3 or 2. You follow. Sometimes you follow the dhan.
We have to.
Sometimes you have to follow the dhan. Like, look, you are praying 2. You don't know if you pray 2 or 3. You don't know at all. Is it 2 or 3? So you take it as 2. But sometimes you are not sure, but it's more likely that it's 3. You're strong. You believe it's 3. You are not sure, but you strongly believe it's 3. You follow 3 here in this case. You understand?
But if you're 50, you follow the list.
Yes. If you are 50-50, then 2. You definitely it's 2 or 3. So definitely 2.
But if you're praying with Jama'ah, they'll remind you.
No, with the Jama'ah is definitely. We're not going to do about sahw. We come to it inshallah. But it's just example here. So now the dhan, the fuqaha, the usuliyin, they introduce something in the Sharia because you see, ijma'. Are you sure 100% that everybody knows it? This is dhan. So why do you follow the dhan when Allah? So they had to come with this. Yeah. They say the whole religion is dhan. Is suspicion. They try to come with this, like hadith narrated by Malik, by Nafi', by Ibn Umar. Malik is a human. And the Nafi', he might make mistakes. Maybe. You understand? So this is dhan. So we take it. There is no hadith mutawatir except for very few hadith that many people narrated. All the hadith are comes from one chain of narration. They say this is all dhan, but we take it. So just for them, when we say, okay, you are taking qiyas, and you are taking ijma' and this is dhan, they say you take a hadith ahad, and this is dhan also. You understand? And then they say Quran is qat'i, it comes from tawatur. But then there is another thing called قطعي الثبوت, قطعي الدلالة. قطعي الثبوت means it has been proven to be from the Sharia with no doubt, like Quran or Hadith Mutawatir. Like definitely the Prophet said that whoever lies about me, because so many Sahaba narrated it from different narrations. But now there is another thing called dalala, the meaning. They say Quran is not qat'i dalala, and the Hadith is not qat'i dalala, except for few. Like where the Prophet says, where Allah says, لا تقربوا, don't approach zina. This is qat'i dalala. It's clear that zina is haram. But they say the majority of Quran is just suspicion. It might mean this, it might mean this. It's not clear. You understand? So they say, wherever there is a word that means many, you can never say which meaning is. So everybody does his own ijtihad. It might be this.
This is what they say, ijtihad.
Yes, this is how they say. This is, some people might take this.
They say everything.
No, the Zahiris say you have to, the Quran is the Quran and the Sunnah is qat'i thubut, qat'i dalala, And this is the saying of Dawud al-Zahiri, contrary to everybody that we know in his time or after him, and the saying of Ibn Hazm. But later, from Ibn Taymiyyah chooses this opinion of the Zahiris regarding this matter about.
Majority for it, the Salafis.
No, the Salafis, Albani, for example, take it.
You take it?
Yeah.
So they take it all now?
Yeah. I'm sorry?
So now they all follow and take it?
No, they take it, yeah, because it's because Ibn Taymiyyah said it,
yeah,
because Ibn Hazm. Yeah, and Ahmed Shakir takes this opinion. Okay, he says, so the meaning of it is like we have to take the both meanings, and we have to take both meanings, and we have to apply both meanings. I mean, take to the two meanings, apply them both in the same time.
So there's no more than. There's no more than then.
Yeah, because there is different opinions. The majority say you have to wash up to here. Ila. You say ila.
Not with.
Yeah, they say no. They say you have to wash the elbow, but for different reasons, not necessarily from like some who say the Prophet never. Everybody who described the wudu of the Prophet say that he washed the elbow, and there is many hadith from Abu Hurairah that actually he started in the part upper the elbow and stuff like this. Other hadith that غر المحجلين, and that is their proofs. However, there is few, like Dawud al-Zahiri, for example, his children as well. They were very strong in Arabic. They said you don't have to wash the elbow because of the Arabic language. Also Sibawayh said you don't have Sibawayh, the Arabic linguistic. He said you don't have to wash the elbow. Also Sibawayh was like student to Zahiri. Also this what's his name, Zufar, from the student of Abu Hanifa, say you don't have to. He said, as for our saying on wiping on the head, people have different opinion. Malik said you have to wipe all your head in the wudu. Abu Hanifa said that you have to wipe 3 fingers from your wudu. You have to wipe the size of 3 fingers on your head. And it has been said that also 4 fingers. Some of his followers say you have to do it 4 fingers on. And it has been said, he said 4 fingers, but if you do it with 2 fingers or 1, it's not enough. But if you do it with 3, it's still okay. Sufyan Thawri said it's enough to wipe part of the head, even if he wipes one hair. I mean, if you don't have to do everything, that's fine. 1 hair, it will be okay. He said it's enough. It's fine to do it with 1 finger or part of the finger. The companions of Shafi'i said at least 2 hair.
Companions of Shafi'i?
Yeah, they said you have to wipe at least 2 hair. 1 is not enough. And it's fine to do it with 1 finger or part of the finger. Shafi'i said it's better to do it 3 times. Like,
okay.
Because the hadith comes, you see, this is the hadith. Now, the people who describe the wudu of the Prophet, all of them didn't say that the Prophet repeated the wudu 3 times, except narration which we are shadh, we call it shadh, odd. Odd is rejected. Hadith odd is rejected. However, there is some hadith where they don't describe it. You understand? Like when the Sahabi doesn't say the Prophet took water, he put water, and then it is like this. The Prophet did wudu 3 times. You understand? Okay. So that hadith clearly here is talking about the hadith which he mentioned earlier and described, but he didn't mention 3 times in his head about wiping the head. Okay. You understand? It's just like sometime when you don't want to talk to say the hadith in full, You say it and then you leave it. The people like
They don't understand.
the common sense. You have already, you know the wudu how. So, but some people choose to take the hadith zahir, where it shouldn't, because zahir, you take the zahir, the saying of Allah and the Prophet. That is the wahi that you have to follow. They don't make mistakes. He said, Ahmad bin Hanbal said, it's enough for the woman to wipe the beginning of the head. Awza'i and Layth said, is enough to wipe the beginning of the head. Also Dawood said, is enough to wipe anyway. That is called masah, as long as it's called masah.
Dawood?
Yeah, Dawood Zahiri. He said you can wipe as much as we can say that he has done masah. You understand? Because taking one hair, is it masah al-ras?
No, really.
Wiping the head.
Not wiping, it's wiping the hair, not the head. Isn't it?
Yeah, this is not wiping the head.
So
It's like taking one hair like this and then wipe it.
this is just
Huh?
but that one I mean, wipe. You see, wipe has to be a movement. It has to be movement, or
Yeah, not putting the hand
yeah, on the head.
You understand? It's like to wipe it. Yeah.
But do they differentiate on how much water?
No need for
Yeah,
just there is no
Sprinkle.
yeah, sprinkle. Masah you don't need normally in Arabic language. Masah you don't need water. He said وكذلك بما مسح من أصبع أو أقل أو أكثر وأحب إليه العموم ثلاثا وهذا هو الصحيح. He said also it doesn't matter whether it is one finger. Dawood said it's not necessarily that it has to be with a finger or less or more. It's not different, doesn't make difference, but he prefers that you do it fully and 3 times. He said as for wiping part of the head, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ, wipe your heads. And the masah in the Arabic language is different from ghasl. He said wiping is different from washing in the Arabic language. He said ghasl, you have to do it fully, you have to wash everything. As for the masah, it's not necessary. Like if someone we say, oh, he wiped the head of the child, like you see someone wiping the child, his son or something. If he does just like this, not fully the head, we say he wiped his head. But if he washes with water, we say he washed part of his head.
Would it suffice if you wipe your head without water?
Well, I told you wiping,
Because that's what I'm saying, from the Arabic language, it doesn't say, or Allah name about the ayat.
Yeah.
But if it says wipe, unless it says wipe with something.
Yeah, in the Arabic language it doesn't say wipe with something. However, is here the head is not wiping. The head here is part of the wudu of tahara, and tahara can be done with water only. Now if you pour the water on the head, that will be ghusl, not masah.
Yes.
So you take the water and wipe the head. I mean, it's not necessary in wiping, we are talking in wiping, to put water, but it is necessary in wiping the head for wudu to take
And
water.
that's the same for the socks as well.
Yeah, you have to do it with water, because we are talking here not masah only. He is said do masah as part of the tahara, and the tahara has to be with
Water.
clean water.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then he mentioned the hadith that the Prophet did wudu, the hadith of Mughira ibn Shu'bah. He said that the Prophet did wudu, he wiped over his forehead. Not this forehead,
so the
I
front.
don't know.
we call it the nasiya, the beginning of the head.
Okay.
Yeah? And he wiped over his khuf. and his imama. So he started with the forehead, and then he went all the way to on the imama.
They used to wear imama like this?
No. They will wear imama normal, as like the people who wear it today. Understand? But then he will do this.
Okay.
The beginning, he will lift the imama to the forehead, and then continue on the. Understand?
From the Arabic language, and we know you could just, even if you had the imama covering your whole head, you could just wipe the imama because you're wiping your head.
You are wiping on the head, yeah. That is, some of them, he will mention that they have different opinion. He says that you can wipe over the head only, because there is some hadith about wiping on the khimar, hadith of Bilal. The others will say, no, you have to uncover part of your head, wipe on it, and then continue because of this hadith. But this is something that he will talk about later. He said, and another hadith, he mentioned another hadith from Mughira ibn Shu'bah, that the Prophet used to wipe over the khuffayn and on the beginning of the head and on the imama. And amongst those who say this, a group of the Salaf, Ibn Umar, he used to put his hand in the water, then he wipe once, just the beginning of the head. Also Fatima bint al-Mundhir bin Zubair used to wipe the temple, the right one, with the right hand, and with the left one with the left hand.
A left temple.
Below the khimar. And he says Fatima bint al-Mundhir met her grandmother Asma. Fatima bint al-Mundhir bin Zubair is the granddaughter of Zubair bin al-Awwam. Her father is al-Mundhir, the brother of Abdullah bin Zubair, and her grandmother is Asma. Asma lived a long time after she lived, so she narrates directly from her. She is the wife of Hisham bin Urwa.
Okay.
Fatima bint al-Mundhir was like muhadditha. She narrates hadith as well. She is famous. Her hadith is in Bukhari and Muslim. So she used to do this, wipe like this below the khimar. She wiped like this. He said also, An-Nakhai said, if he wipe here, if he reaches this area and this, then it's fine for wudu. Sha'bi as well said, if he wipes side of his head, it's fine. Ata and Safiya bint Abi Ubaid. Safiya bint Abi Ubaid is the wife of Ibn Umar. She is not Sahabi woman. She is not Sahabiya. She is, and she is considered, when it comes to hadith, some people take her hadith, some people don't, because
she's not Sahabiya.
She is not Sahabiya, no, but she narrates, for example, she narrates from someone. Understand? But she is like majhul, unknown. Even though she is very famous to be the wife of Ibn Umar, but like she is unknown in terms of narration, whether she is reliable, like regarding memory and stuff. And Ata and Safiya bint Abi Ubaid and Akrima and Hassan and Abu al-Ali and Abd al-Rahman bin Abi Layla and others say the same thing, that you don't have to wipe the whole head. He said, Abu Muhammad said, there is no different opinion from other Sahaba of what Ibn Umar have said. And those who say anything different to what we are saying, and they use the hadith, they use to like proofs, as proof. Any hadith that says that the Sahaba used to wipe their heads fully, they are wrong. He said nobody can use. He said Ibn Umar said it's fine not to wipe the whole head. And they said those who opposes us, they will say okay, they will mention many Sahaba who used to wipe the full head. He said that is not proof, because the fact that the Sahaba used to do it doesn't mean they consider it that also to be necessary.
Yeah.
You understand? You say, but when Ibn Umar doesn't do it, that is mean he doesn't consider it to be necessary, because he will not do. You understand? He said, because wiping the whole head, we also say it's good to do it. You understand his point here? He says, so they have to prove that these Sahaba who were doing it this way, they don't accept
They don't have obligatory
to do it, that you wipe part of it.
Yeah.
He said also, those who contradict us in this matter, and they say you have to like wipe the full head,
Yep.
such as the Malikis.
Okay.
He said then they say that in the masah, in the wiping of the khuf, you don't have to do it fully.
What did he say just? Tip.
On the masah of the khuf, or for Malik for example, he doesn't, according to the most famous narration from him, that you don't must do masah al-khufayn anyway. Understand? But the Malikis say you do. So he says, they say that he is not referring to the Malikis here only, but the Ahnaf, we know the Ahnaf and the Maliki, the Ahnaf and the Shafi'i say you can wipe over the head, just part of it. So he's referring to some others, but definitely the Malikis, those who amongst the Malikis say there is Masah al-Khufayn, because there is different narrations from Malik, then they say you have to do Masah on the head altogether. But he's saying, but they contradict themselves when they say you do Masah al-Khufayn, just part of it. You know, Masah al-Khufayn,
They should be consistent basically.
You understand? And they do qiyas, of course. He said if the masah have to be done fully, not part of the limb only. So what is the difference between masah and ghusl? They will say masah, you don't have to pour water, you don't have to, but masah, you have to.
Say it again?
He say if they say that you have to do masah with the whole, everything, every inch of the area. So we tell them what is the difference between it and ghusl. Because you have water on your body.
Oh yeah. Also you wash everything.
Yes. But what about someone taking water and wiping his whole hand?
Isn't that washing?
And he makes sure that every inch of his hand is wiped with water. Do we call that ghusl?
Yeah.
Like water like this, not pouring water, just touching water and then make sure that every
when I do wudu, I get water in my hand and I go like
of course,
like that, 3 times, so I get every inch, but I don't get like a whole amount of water and put it underneath. Is that necessary, or am I doing something wrong?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
So he says if they say ghusl is masah the same, if they say it's different, I'm just asking a question here, is do we call it ghusl, like to take water and make sure that can you call it ghusl?
It's the same as when you're washing, it's just the amount of water.
Yes.
So it's washing.
Yeah, it is.
I mean,
I'm
it's
just
an
asking
extra
a question.
act.
I'm just understand.
It's an extra act, definitely.
Anyway, they say he says here that if they say it's the same, then we say what's the difference between wiping and washing? If they say you have to put water everywhere on your body, on the area that you have to do wiping. He says if wiping is the same as wudu, as ghusl, then why, if wiping is the same, if you choose to say it's the same, masah and ghusl, why do you
could get a towel and wipe your whole body?
Why do you say that wiping the feet in wudu is haram?
Which is that?
Wiping the feet.
Why is this haram?
Everybody says that wiping the feet is haram if there is no socks.
Okay.
So wiping, you say, okay, you consider wiping is to cover the whole place. You have to cover every inch
of your leg to wipe.
To whatever you are wiping. You said if you say wiping has to cover everything, then you should say it's fine to wipe the feet because it
And
will
no
be covered with
wiping and
water.
washing.
He said also, you say, you agree that when ghusl from janaba, you have to pour water every inch of the head. Like
Okay.
they say, when you ghusl janaba, you say you have to pour water that it reaches everywhere.
It's everywhere.
You say, but you don't say that regarding wudu. So you agree here that masah is different to ghusl. He says, and the only difference here that we can work out from these two is that ghusl has to be fully umum, but masah doesn't have to be fully, like just part of the what you are of the limb. And this is by accepting this, you should accept this, and by accepting this, you have left your madhab. He said, and also we ask you this question: what do you say regarding someone who has done masah fully in head, but he missed part of one hair, like piece, just one hair? He missed one hair. What do you say regarding his wudu? And he said, you will. Their answer is always, it's fine if he misses one hair. He said, then, like we will tell them, what about 2 hair, 3 hair, 4, and said, until they leave their saying, until we tell, we like, it's sort of like, okay, 2 hair, 3, 4, 5, 1,000, huh? The whole head, except just part of it. You understand? He said, فَإِنْ قَالُوا, whoever put the wudu, whoever wipes all of his head, then his wudu is complete. But the one who doesn't do it, his wudu is not complete. You understand that? You remember this?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, what they say.
This is ijma'.
This is ijma'. If you do this, if you do, what was it again?
Last time it was
the numbers.
No, they said something in the ghusl.
We all agree if we do it fast.
Dalk. If you rub on your body
Fast.
then your ghusl is complete.
We all agree it's accepted.
Yeah.
But,
If you don't, then there is different opinion. So we have to take what is agreed on. You understand? And then he answered. He said, we all agree if you do madmada and istinshaq that you
answer them back.
Yeah. He said then. He said then here if they say they normally use this. They say if you wipe your head complete, then your wudu is complete definitely. If you do part of it, then there is doubt about it. There is different opinions. So we should do it fully. He said we will tell them also if you do madmada and istinshaq, your wudu is complete. If you don't do it, which you say you don't have to, then there is doubt. Then you have to take madmada and istinshaq as an obligation in wudu.
The Malikis always use this.
The Malikis, yeah, they do this. Even the Ahnaf. He said, فإن قالوا مسحه عليه السلام مع ناصيته على عمامته يدل على العموم. He said, if they say that the Prophet, when he wiped over the beginning of the head and on the top of the imama, that shows that it is important that you have to do it fully, like that you have to to do everything. He said, this is the most wonderful thing.
Wonderful thing?
This is very like a wonder.
Amazing. Oh, wonderful.
Amazing, yeah. He said, because you don't accept that anyway. Yeah, they don't accept. They say if someone does it that way, it's invalid.
Yeah.
He said, but and also, who says that it was one action, like he did it in one time? Like Mughira ibn Shu'bah said, the Prophet wiped over his forehead, or the beginning of the head, and on the imamah. You understand? He said who says that this
One action.
it was one action in one place, like it means he said according to the hadith, the way he understand it, that he one time he did part of the Hajj and another time he wiped out the imam, but that is not true. The hadith is clearly he was talking about, it comes different narrations. That is what he does with the hadith. He break it and they say this is one time. Ibn Hazm, Ibn Qayyim criticized him for in this. Ibn Qayyim does it as well, but he criticized Ibn Hazm because Ibn Hazm every time he said two hadith, just one word different. Instead of saying, oh, there is difference, so he will make this one hadith and this one hadith. Just one word different, and we know the narrators do this. He will say this is one hadith and this is one hadith. Yeah, like Salatul Khawf, the Sahaba describe it in different way. It's clear that it was like Salatul Khawf, the Prophet prayed it twice. Ibn Hazm will make it like 14. Because every narrator who mentions something and he doesn't mention the others. He said, as for takhsis, what Abu Hanifa said, the quarter of the head of three fingers, it has no proof, it has no basis. It has no basis. He said, if they say that is the nasiya, because the hadith say that the Prophet used to wipe the nasiya, and they say the nasiya is this. If they say that is the nasiya is 4 fingers, he said, we will say, who told you that? Because people have different heads, their heads are not different sizes, and the fingers are different as well. He said, so to say it is the quarter of the head, he said to decide that it is the quarter of the head, we need to break first the skull and start. He said, also same thing for those who say 2 fingers or 1 finger. If they say it's the most of the head, most of the hand, we say that you don't consider it to be an obligation to wipe with the hand anyway. You say if he stands below some water pouring and then the water falls on his head and he does intention, it's enough. You understand? Because they say, he said, if you say because that is how the hand is, or it's like when you wipe with 4 fingers. He said, we say that according to you, you don't have to do it with the hand anyway, because you sit under the water and you do intention that is masah of the head is enough. That is of course definitely not masah. That is not called masah at all. To do it with
washing.
I mean, yeah. He said, we asked them as well, how did you come to say it's with the majority or the most of the hand, you have to use most of your hand? He said, it's just saying, you don't have proof for it. So they didn't follow the hadith. They didn't follow the hadith. He said, as for the saying of Shafi'i, for the saying of Shafi'i and the Shafi'is that you have to wipe one hair, he said the hadith doesn't say wipe your hair. The hadith
says wipe
the head. Yeah. He said the Quran mentions.
So where did he get hair from? Where did he get wipe one hair from?
Because hair is in the head. He said, so we have to take what is called wiping of the head, and wiping of the hair is not called wiping of the head, because hair may be very long. You understand?
A woman
was, she just wiped her hair on her lap. He said, we have to take what is wiping of the head. As for the hadith that says the Prophet used to do masah on the regarding the hair or something, he said because his hair was on his head. He didn't have like long hair to all his. Yeah, and it's finished. This is the last of.
What issue are we going to be next?
Huh?
What masala is next?
What's it called?
Wiping of the air is not an obligation.
Okay.
Oh, is it 199?
Yeah, 199. 199 is the number that you dial when you have problem, yeah?
Americans.
Okay.